I'm just trying to get my my guitar to sound good. Oh, it's time for Tom's Guitar Show, huh? Okay, well, let's see. What you do is you go like here, turn that down. Go like. Okay, well, hello everybody, welcome to the Tom's Guitar Show. I'm Tom. They call me Guitar Tom because I'm often seen with a guitar, and they used to call me on the phone back when we had a call-in show, and they'd say things like, "Hey man, what's your show about?" I say, "Oh, it's about an hour, about guitar players, guitar playing, all things guitaristic." So, DJ Commando, I have a repetitive joke syndrome. I tell the same joke over and over again. You've probably known guys like this before, but there's a lot of that going around. It's a terrible thing. Anyway, all right. Sorry, we don't have Bob. We have DJ Commando sitting in for Bob. Anyway, Bob's out snowbirding in Las Vegas, so there's okay. Okay, so what am I now? Oh, yeah, okay. So here's the thing. This is a show about guitars, guitar playing, all things guitaristic, and people do ask me questions. I guess we don't even bother to hook up the phone anymore, but about the care and feeding of your guitar, what kind of guitar is right for you, how to play the guitar. We've had topics we entertain around here, like the guitarrón, the guitarra, sitar, lutes, uds, vihuelas, banjos, balalaikas, bazookies, bajos, sextos, bajos, cincos, cavaquinhos, and tiples, chitoles, let's say, yeah, pipe organs, and piccolos, and ocarinas and accordions, and trombones and tamarinas, and cornets and clavinets and clavichords and harmoniums and harpsichords and harmonicas, anything like that. Dobros and didgeridoo-doos. That's Bob's line, but as I said, he's in Las Vegas. He snowbirds every year, He's Sin City. He hangs around the senior centers. They got several senior centers in Las Vegas, so he hangs around the senior centers. So this is your competition now, is it? But
I see that.
Yeah. You wear suspenders too. I don't know if that's probably not your style, but
I guess I could try one day.
Yeah.
Say it in here again.
Do you even own any suspenders?
I used to. I actually had some of the like white and black polka dots. It was pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah.
But you wear them like with dress pants or something like that.
Okay. I used to have the MC Hammer look.
Oh yeah. Did you have the genie pants?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You had the genie pants.
Even had the black shoes that he danced with.
Yeah.
I had those too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
But then you saw the error of your ways and moved on, or something.
I basically had to graduate from all that.
Well, that was probably some time ago.
Yeah, it was a while back.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm not necessarily proud of how I used to dress either. I'm not proud of how I dress today, but you know, but right now I'm kind of more utilitarian. You know, I don't. I guess I don't try that hard. You know, you can probably tell. Never, you don't have to agree with me. So I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So anyway, well, anyway, we talk about politics, world events, fashion choices, you know, whatever. But people's personality problems. That's why we keep it clean. This is a family program. All right. Well, okay. So this here, rather twanging guitar. This is a Fender Telecaster. This is my latest project. Now I've had this guitar for some time. But what I did was, this was the last one that was in a basement of a guitar shop in Burlington. It's like a 2006 maybe. I thought it was a 2008, but it might be 2006 because of the serial number. Made in Valencia, not Valencia, I mean Ensenada. Valencia is in Spain where you make, never mind. Different guitars. Anyway, so this is one of those, from probably when that factory was new, that Fender built in Mexico right down the coast. And what I didn't like about it was really noisy. The pickups were really noisy, and the pickguard was white, and the pickups were white, or the one that was actually could be colored was white. But it was really noisy. So I put these are Seymour Duncans. If you like hang on my show, and very few people do, but if you like to watch my show, some weeks ago, whatever, I had a black Telecaster from the same shipment, the same storage, and I had it not chipped out, had the white pickguard taken off, and some area T, some DiMarzio area T noises pickups put on it. So this one is this was the last one. I didn't really want this what they call midnight wine colored, this dark red. I was saying, oh, I'd take a black one or I'll take a white one. Like I wanted the white one, and then and then but that was gone. So they had one brown sunburst, and it was gone. So the last one that they had was this one. And so I was thinking, forget it. I got enough guitars, which is, there's a T-shirt you can get, say, I have enough guitars, said no one ever. But anyway, it's a habit. I was talking about, it's like, some people like, there's a story, there's a woman who had this eating disorder. She liked pancakes spread with peanut butter. Mm-hmm. So she would get like the big sack of pancake mix, you see, and then she would get the large industrial size can of peanut butter. And all day she would stand at the stove, and as quick as she could make pancakes, she would slather them with peanut butter and eat them, and until she couldn't stand anymore. And it was hard for her to stand anyway, because she, weighed like 4 times as much as she should have probably. She was extremely large, and then somebody had to have an intervention. Because you see this. So.
Yeah, that would seem right.
That would tend to put on a little weight, I would think.
I would think so too. I mean, that's a lot of peanut butter on a pancake, and you got the thick bread and the dough and all that.
Yeah, the pancakes it's all like like white flour and starch. It goes immediately to glucose, and it goes immediately to fat.
Right.
The barbell boys, I used to lift a few weights now and then, and voluntarily. I mean, of course, I hoist amps, but the barbell boys would tell me that fat was okay. Fat, carbohydrates turn to fat a lot faster than fat does. Mm-hmm. So if you eat, and nowadays they say fat's okay. Say, oh, so all these years we've been saying low fat, no fat. No, that's not good for you. No, because no, fat's good for you. It's the carbohydrates that'll get you. Unless like what if you're like what I was talking about, like the poor Irish back in the old days, they eat like several pounds of potatoes every day each, to survive, but they worked. They worked out in the fields with like sticks, Mm-hmm. So they burn all that off.
Right.
Most of us sit behind in front of our computers, and then we go drive our car, and then we,
Exactly. That's not burning off any fat.
No, you don't. Well, you don't need the calories for that. You don't need that anyway.
Right.
You don't need the carbohydrates for that. So anyway, so I'm digressing. I was talking about this guitar, and then I started talking about the woman who couldn't stop eating the pancakes. And swelled up all over, and then I, because I was talking about obsession and like.
Exactly, because that is a huge obsession. Pancakes and peanut butter.
Yeah, that would be one.
Yeah.
Now mine, this way I can excuse my own behavior because mine's just guitars, you see, and they don't add calories. What happens is you get these little calluses on your fingers, you see, because you push down the strings and roughs them up, but then you get used to it. You get the calluses.
Could you lose weight by playing guitar?
Probably.
Exercise.
Well, no poverty, because if you play guitar, you don't make very much money, so you can't afford to eat. So anyway.
Right.
But I guess yeah. And there's anyway. So okay. So I got this one. This has the Seymour Duncan pickups, and I got a plain black pickguard. And actually, I think it looks pretty. What do you think? It looks pretty good.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. So I anyway, but it's very. It's a Telecaster, so it's very bright. Now, if I turn this all the way up here, now here it's like. I mean, that's what, or like country. But it also makes a pretty good blues guitar. Makes a pretty good jazz guitar if you can tame it. So I'm just playing this anyway. Customized Telecaster, and this is the first time I played to this amp for like 1 minute at home before I packed up to come here because I wanted to have it be real simple. I've been playing through kind of a big tube amp at home, and I didn't want to, there's snow everywhere and it's cold, so I didn't want to like get the big tube amp out of my trunk and then put it down in the snow while I close the trunk or something like that. I didn't want to So, and also we're having a committee meeting after this. I'm gonna try to tear down and pack up in less than 2 minutes and see if that works. So I've got this cheap little practice amp here, little Fender Mustang 1 that I bought to put in my office at one of the colleges I teach at, and then I got this guitar, which was a cheap guitar, but well made in Texas. I mean, not Texas, in Baja. And see if I can make any music. That's all because for some reason, I want to play A minor 13 chord in this guitar.
That was very soulful, man. I was over here just relaxing to that, and it, you know, we was just talking about it last show, and how, you know, music just soothes you and get inside your body and just makes you feel good. And I just over here just listening to you, relaxing, and it just felt so good.
It's
That's
you know,
nice. I like that.
I like music makes you get up and dance, but I also like music where you can just sort of space off and think your own thoughts.
Yes.
You know, it's a different thing. I was thinking about, like, there are different purposes for music. You know, you got, you know, everything from you know, you got, I mean, like, see, when I was a young fellow, you know, like the rock bands were big. There are a lot of rock bands. There are blues bands and other, you know, kind of bands, but mostly like some sort of rock bands. It might go kind of more from the blues to the more hard rock and in between, and maybe there's kind of a country rock thing, you know, that
Right.
kind of, but there are these bars, you know, where they have a big stage and they have a really loud band, and you go there, and well, I mean, basically you drink beer and try to meet women. That was
Right.
the point of it. But and there was a lot of employment for these you know, these bar bands. They would actually make some money. They'd have usually a old school bus, and they would live a life of hardship. And I actually subbed a little bit, and I took money at the door, but I was never employed in one of those bands. I was in pickup bands. You know, we had to put together a band real quick for something, you know.
Right.
But I remember those days, you know. And there's a thing. So what you want to do is the one thing you don't want to do is to get to the point where people aren't going to want to dance anymore, because then they leave. They might leave the dance floor, or they might go to the bar next door,
Right.
where they have a hotter band, you know. So it's always like hyped up, and but then there's another sort of thing where, you know, you can like go someplace or just sit home and listen, or if you play, you know, you can play it for yourself,
Right.
you know, where you're thinking. So anyway, I'm just making observations. I don't have a conclusion. I will tell you one thing though. Sometimes the kind of gigs I play when I'm kind of a background musician, you know, which makes the place like more pleasant for people. Apparently, they really want me there. So, like this weekend, I'll be at the Tuscan Moon in beautiful downtown Kelowna, Iowa, where they have the little candlelight and the white tablecloths, you know, and the gourmet chef or whatever. But I play like background music, and everybody can hear it, but you can still talk over it, and they do. So it's always there, you know. And then I'm just kind of like feeling out the room, and then I'm basically practicing for 3 hours.
So what you just basically played would be something that you would play at that that spot.
I might. Probably wouldn't play a guitar like this, though.
Oh, okay.
So this winter I've been playing almost exclusively, well, since Christmas anyway, I've been playing this nylon string guitar. Somewhat less expensive one from Spain. It's a Spanish guitar with pickup in it, and I got a little amp. And I keep wanting to branch out, but, you know, in the summer I've been playing like a big jazz box. Last summer I played almost the whole summer with a big fat jazz box, and the Roland JC40 Jazz Chorus 40-watt amp, and that filled up the outdoors. Mm-hmm. But inside it's just like, you know, it's a small room with a high ceiling, and the sound bounces off. So I fill the room with this nylon string Spanish style. So I'll play like Spanish music and like bossa nova Brazilian music,
Yes.
but I also play like popular music. And so I do stuff, and I realized, like, I used to do this stuff a long time ago, but like everybody who could buy an expensive bottle of wine, they're like 60 to 70 years old, a lot of them, So if that was in 1983 or 1984 or something like that, you figure, okay, so if they, were in high school like 50 years before, that was in the 1930s.
Right.
So you're thinking Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra when he was getting his start, And they actually, there's good music back in the 30s. I mean, Duke Ellington,
Yes.
that whole, that big band thing. There's a lot of really good music, a lot of really good songwriters back in those days. But, but nowadays I find myself playing, I still play some of that stuff, but it's really irrelevant to almost everybody, except a certain kind of cultured, jazz, historical music aficionado, so. But what people want to hear, I've been playing, so I started playing Eagles songs,
Yeah, Eagles are good.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, but I mean, I'm just doing a guitar arrangement, so I'm not singing it, so people can kind of like think of the words in their head, or they remember the song, but I'm not singing it to them.
Right.
And then I learned a couple of Rolling Stones songs, because I knew a guy, because I learned some Beatles songs over the years. People have Beatles songs at their weddings, so I learned Beatles songs. And I know people, like one guy who has a Harley. I mean, he's probably pushing 70, and he's, he's an engineer somewhere, makes a lot of money, but he's still got kind of long hair. He's got kind of those droopy wire-rimmed glasses like the biker would, and he hates the Beatles, but he loves the Stones and the Eagles. So to keep him happy, I started, I never thought I'd be playing like Rolling Stones songs on my Spanish guitar.
Right.
But I do that, and then I started branching out. So now I'm doing more like I'm starting to do more Motown, actually, which is kind of interesting, doing Motown on a classical guitar. I was doing.
It's very different, isn't it? Very different feel to it.
Well, it is, but it is, yeah. But there's a strong rhythm. I grew up with a bass, playing the bass, string bass, jazz band and orchestra, and then I bass guitar. After high school, I had to give them back their string bass, so I got bass guitar because you can afford it, and you can store it because it's not that tall, standing there in the corner. But so I like to, I think of like. I want to do actually. I'd like to do more funk. I got to think about this a little bit because I really like funk, especially the bass part. I mean, or like. I mean, I like, well, let's say. I mean, that's fine, but I want to be
You want to keep that groove going. You like that groove, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wanted to thump. And funk doesn't fool around.
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
It comes in on the one.
Yes.
See, rock, the blues at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And of course, country is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
boom, tick, boom, tick, boom. Elvira, Elvira, my heart's on fire for Elvira. Anyway,
Right.
I owe silver away. I'll probably never do Elvira, actually. That probably won't make it to the set. But anyway, I was okay. But one thing I was like, I wonder if it was fun if I did this. Like, that's too harsh. It's nothing like the original.
Right.
Or should I say, ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. But
Hey, there you go. That's
but
that Motown sound right there.
but I really like it. I like that. I mean, I like that that whole Motown thing. I'm kind of interested in the actual studio musicians who made it happen. You know, the people who actually in those studios, the ones you never hear about. You know,
Right.
behind the scenes.
Exactly. What do you think about Steely Dan? Like the crazy thing about Steely Dan always gets me is like their albums are like so clean, so
Yeah,
crisp,
yeah.
and it's just like you can't. I've never heard any production like that anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Not at all.
Well, they're really well done, but I got to tell you, I mean, when they were, you could tell I'm getting to be an old fella here. You know, I just turned 61 a couple weeks ago. That's you know, I mean, for a guitar player, that's pretty good. Anyway, but so I was around. I mean, when they were, you know, when they were together, and I know they're really well produced and everything like that, but the kind of the voice and the overall sound, and the cluster chords like jazz chords, I always found it a little bit irritating, and I really didn't, you know, some people would playing. I'd go to a party and they'd be playing Steely Dan, and I was kind of wishing they'd play something else. And I know that's just like the way, you know, it's just my reaction to it. You know, obviously I'm sure I like a lot of stuff other people don't like, but you know, I mean, I really like the duck liver pate they have at the Tuscan Moon, you know, but it's, you know, not for everybody, but
Right.
anyway.
I've never been there before, but I would like to go try it out and see what it's
You
like.
should. You take a date with you though, and make a reservation. But,
Okay. I would definitely take my fiance with me. Let her know.
yeah, well, yeah. You know, I would. I recommend Valentine's Day personally, but that's just.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a Wednesday. Though.
That's a Wednesday too. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of hard for people to do, but they're taking reservations. So. I'm going to. I remember that reschedule my Wednesday because I might start real early and play for a long time, but that's usually really big. If you play the Spanish guitar, that's your big day of the year. I mean, you know, okay, sure, I got New Year's Eve booked, sure, yeah, you know, and then there's always, I used to always do the Christmas Eve service for the Lutherans, you know, because there's this Franz Gruber, you know, the story about Silent Night is Stille Nacht, you know, back in the old country, the organ broke in the church. Oh, what would we do for Christmas music? And they got a guitar out. This is a long time ago when the guitar wasn't, you know, like this. And they wrote Silent Night. So that was the big deal. So these Lutherans, every year, they want to make sure to get me in there for them to
Do the Silent Night version.
the Silent Night thing.
Nice.
Yeah. So they go, and some of them would sing it in German, you know, Stille Nacht. You know, but that's not, you know. But so these are the things I would do. Halloween, I could play a Halloween. I mean, sure, but no. Valentine's Day is when they need the Spanish guitar. You see, because I mean, I don't know what's more romantic than that. We could ask Mr. Skopinski if he knows, but wow, I burned up half the show already. Oh well. Anyway, but yeah, I would. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is though that I'll play. I keep learning new songs, and I know that like Paula. One of the owners, and Warren and Paula are 70, and they're pushing 71. They're old people who own it. And Paula's from New Jersey, and she's from a Sicilian background, Italian, New Jersey. So when she was a teenager, that was in the 60s, because the guy like me's class is 75, high school. This guy's class is 65. So, they would they have these dances where everybody kind of lines up and they do the same dance thing to this stuff, and of course the Motown thing was big, and then there was a kind of a Frankie Valli kind of stuff, the guy sang up real high,
Right.
and a doo-wop kind of like stuff that grew out of the doo-wop thing of the 50s and before, and so this is a kind of like, and so people from that it reminds them of their youth, and for me it's interesting. Because I kind of grew up as a classical guitarist, so I'm basically playing music from other countries, where I'm not from, and not Iowa. 'Cause in Iowa, I don't know if you ever watched Lawrence Welk back in the days, but he had the accordion and there was polkas and stuff.
I remember watching Lawrence Welk.
Okay, well then you know what the indigenous music of Iowa really sounds like.
Yes, I do.
It's not the country stuff, you know, the Grand Ole Opry and the sequin suits, you know. That's Southern stuff. This is German and Bohemian dirt farmers,
Right.
you know, going into town on Saturday night with their best overalls.
Yes.
You know, and the accordion's big, you know. So if I'm playing music from Italy in the 1820s, or you know, or Spain in the 1580s, you know, so it's kind of grew up with that kind of stuff. It's interesting to me. I don't know. I knocked around Europe some, looked at the old buildings and museums and stuff. But you know, the thing is that like most people don't find that very relevant. And a lot of the music people were writing back then was they were picking up folk songs and popular music, and they were like Gaspar Sanz, who was in Spain like in 1700 and before. You know, he would write down the music that people were playing in the streets, like Canary Islands dances. So and those people, I mean, like, okay, so a busy port town in Spain, they had like, you know, South American Indians, you know, people from all over Europe, Africa, North Africa, you know, Berbers, Arabs, and people like that. All these people kind of, and who knows, kind of mixtures of people, you know, people who are like, and Jews, you know, all kind of like, you know, because if people come on the ships and they unload the ships and they're like in port and the sailors and stuff. So they have all these kind of cultures. You know, it's like someplace like Canary Islands, you know, you're kind of in between North Africa. You got that, you know, Berber, Arabic thing, you know, maybe some sub-Saharan African thing. You got the kind of like the Greeks and, you know, people, and you got this mixture of people who like later became the Turks, you know,
Right.
mixed together. And all kinds of rhythms and stuff like that. They were writing that down. So I figured, well, yeah. Okay, so if I'm playing something from like 1690, you know, that some guy wrote down was like popular music of the time, and wrote. So now we've got it today, you know, because you can read it. So I thought, well, how about okay? Well, I kind of feel like I'm playing a museum piece,
Right.
you know. So I think, oh, that's okay. What's happening? I mean, like the whole music from the era that I've lived so far. You know, I was born in the 50s, late 50s, you know, so I grew up through the 60s and the 70s, and you had the 60s and 70s, pretty good time for rock and roll, I guess, and really good time for blues. I mean, you think of the rise of B.B. King and also a lot of blues musicians of various kinds, you know, the electric blues, Muddy Waters and everything coming out of the 50s. So all that, you know, and then don't forget Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
So, you know, anyway. Sorry, I'm just babbling incoherently.
Oh no, that's all right. I'm getting a history lesson right now as well, because I know about the artists that you did mention though too as well.
Yeah.
I know about Bob Dylan. And
Yeah, of course. Well, of course. yeah.
exactly. So yeah.
How could you not? You know, I mean,
Right. You got to know about Bob Dylan.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of movements in music and stuff like that, and I just think like more later things like you know, Michael Jackson, huge influence, you know, in what he did, you know, and what I learned about Michael Jackson is he wrote those songs. He didn't actually play an instrument, but he would do like a beatboxing thing, you know, and get the people around him to say, "I want you to go like this," you know, and the guy would do that, okay, and then they, you know, he created, you know, like, I mean, you know, like George Gershwin, when he wants to create a thing, you know, or Duke Ellington for that matter, you know, sit down, write the notes out on the page. And then, of course, Duke Ellington would play the piano, or George Gershwin would play the piano, and then you hire the musicians, and they'd put it all together, you know. But Michael Jackson, you know, it's like coming up and they say, okay, I want you to go like that, okay, and you go, okay, I'll do that, and then I want you to go, you know, or, you know, just like, I mean, just some of these, I mean, I don't know. What's his name? I know his name so well. I feel good. Well,
James Brown.
James Brown, of course, James Brown. But he would conduct his band with his dance moves.
Yes.
So they'd have to be watching what he's doing. So if he'd do a thing, like this, he was really good with his feet, you know,
Right.
do a thing, and they'd like, you know, and everybody, and if you couldn't cop the lick, you're out.
Oh, I know it. He was so strict with them. It was just was wild. I mean, I'm like, I've even watched videos of him just sitting there like you said, he was just like, nope, and shoot him out and be like, wow, really?
Yeah, but there's like 9 guys waiting in the hall.
Right.
For that,
just
for
like
that job, you know. They're like, wait, so, yeah. Well,
and they're waiting for days too. They're just sitting there like, okay, I bet he's going to mess up. I bet he's going to mess up. As soon as he does, he just next one come in.
Well, probably make you a better musician if you know there's some guy like standing there, like staring through the door, the glass in the door, waiting for you to mess up because I'm next.
Right.
Yeah.
All over the country too, all over the world, just lines up, just waiting.
Yeah.
Next show, just lines up, just waiting.
Yeah. Well, focus the mind some, I guess. I'm glad it's not me. I mean, but, I wouldn't even want to be the next guy because I might,
Be too nervous and mess up automatically.
Right.
Not even really get a chance.
But you figure though, if you were one of those guys though, and you've been through that, and you survived his band for a long time and toured, you learned a lot from playing, and then you'd be like really good, and there'd be some other band somewhere for you, and maybe you'd be a band leader, and it'd be like a whole lot better than going to college, I suppose, as far as that.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know. That's a whole interesting thing. I would do. Speaking of like Rolling Stones, let me see if I can do this. This is something I came up with. So we were doing a couple of Rolling Stones songs when we were the house band, the Tom and the Tribbles, for Trek Fest every year in Riverside. Riverside is the future birthplace of Captain Kirk from Star Trek. Mm-hmm. So they have this festival. And sort of like for 5 years, we, the Tom and the Tribbles, which are my students, adult students, we were the band. It'd be like a 6-7 piece band with we had an accordion and a string bass and banjo and guitars and stuff, and we'd kind of like go from classic country from the 40s to classic rock to whatever. So we had Eric for a while, who was if you listen to public radio, he's a sleep expert doctor from the sleep disorders center here at the hospital, but he's a singer among other things. So he was in the band. So we would do some Rolling Stones songs, and we did Wild Horses, which we only did a couple songs because it's too slow. We want to have we want to keep it moving because it wasn't that kind of gig, Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I'm just going to try this out. I'm just wasting. something like that. Wild Horses. Never was a huge fan of the Rolling Stones either. I don't know. Yeah.
I only liked one song of theirs, really, Miss You. That was it, or Satisfaction. Other than that, that was probably about it.
Can't get no satisfaction.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't have a strong connection. I really liked like a certain era of Bob Dylan a whole lot, you know, and maybe a little bit of like a slice of Jackson Brown stuff at a certain point. And I really liked some of his side musicians. He did a live album, and I had this guy who was staying with me for a while. And he played that album a lot. The live album was a tour he was doing, and it was there was a guy. Maybe it was a Sneaky Pete. It was a guy who was a lap steel player, you know, and he was just like incredible. If you like running on empty. 69, I was. I mean, but you know, which is kind of exciting. So it's autobiographical. He's talking about how when he was 17, you know, like when he was 69, I was 21, and I called the road my own. You know, it was like, and it's okay. It's a good song. But just the whole like the band cooking like that, the grand piano, but that lap steel player, and I actually saw a video of him, and it's just some like hairy-looking hippie-like guy sitting there with a little lap steel on his lap, sitting in there like a straight-back chair, dining room chair, you know.
Yeah.
It's like this incredibly exciting, like, powerful, like soaring, like solo above everything else. You know, I was thinking, if I were in a band with a guy like that, I would never get a chance to get a solo in because I'd just be strumming, because that guy's like, But that was great. The also, I was just thinking like. Because I don't necessarily always, kind of like identify with the song itself, that much about somebody's personal problems or something. But a lot of times I listen to the production and the just the quality of the studio musicians and stuff like that. They like just the way it's put together and like how really good like Russ Kunkel, I mean, some of these studio guys from like the 70s and mostly the 70s and before and after, but this incredible. And then the one thing, like Carol Kay, I'm still she's still around. So she was a bebop guitar player in the 50s, and then she's a poor kid from Spokane or someplace, and so she was in band. But those days you could have a jazz band at a bowling alley. There's a lot of work. We didn't pay very much.
Right. So
she started having kids or something. I don't know what her, marital status or what her, who the father. Anyway, but she got out of the racket and she started playing bass. And the reason she wanted to do that was because if she went and played guitar in the studios, she'd have to take like 3 or 4 guitars with her to work. But at the bass, she just had to take 1. So it was more convenient. And then she had to punch out at a certain hour so she'd go pick up her kids at school. Let's see. She had the cat's eye glasses. But when I was a kid, we had these TV, Sonny and Cher and the Smothers Brothers and, and Ed Sullivan early on when I was a little kid. But they had all these bands that come out, and of course they're just lip syncing, to whatever their hit record was at the time, and they were like, and I realized, found out later, a lot of them weren't actually playing their own instruments. So a lot of those bass players, those really cool, groovy bass lines, were this middle-aged woman with the cat's eye glasses who was, the drug of choice among the wrecking crew, in the studio system was coffee. Yeah. And they punch a time clock, and they would just cop the lick right away, churn out this stuff. And they actually create a lot of that music. They gave them a basic lead sheet chords and a melody, and they'd fill in the rest. So a lot of the grooviest bass parts, you see some guy, up there, looking really cool, but his fingers are hardly moving the bass player. Because I was always been interested in bass since I was a little kid, And say, it doesn't look like he's even doing anything. It's like he's going like this, going like. But he's a model. He's a meat puppet. The bass line was, worked out and recorded by somebody else last year in a studio, and that's not him playing. And I didn't know that yet. You see, and now we hear a lot about the Wrecking Crew. I think somebody made a movie about him or something. But the secret came out. And I don't know if I was an early adopter of The Secret because I read about it just some years ago. But so So I kind of identify with them. I've done some session work, but they, unlike the Wrecking Crew, they actually will put my name on the
credits.
CD. Yeah, on the credits.
Yeah.
So, in there, if you got good eyes, you could probably see it.
Right. You got to have the magnifying glass to see the actual credits of all of it.
And then whether or not they spell it right, I mean, that's something else. But
right.
That's the other. Anyway, I mean, anyway, I see like that guy playing the lap steel in Jackson Brown's band, or a lot of these things. You think, wow, that's just great. That's like so exciting. And the guy, came up with it. And probably Jackson Brown said, "Yeah, do more of that." But
right. You know what I miss too? There's a couple of things I miss. I'm gonna just touch on one of them real quick. Like like we just was talking about on the albums and the credits. Mm-hmm. That's what I miss. I miss actually going to actually getting a CD or album or whatever, mm-hmm. and actually going inside and looking at the credits of who did what on what song.
Right.
Those were the interesting things to me. Mm-hmm. Just seeing like, okay, like you say, the guy with steel guitar. Mm-hmm. What's his name?
Yeah.
Who is that?
Yeah, so you can like hear him do other things somewhere else or something.
Right, to be like, okay, oh, that's him from Jackson Brown.
Yeah. And he was on that record and that one too. You think, wow, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the MP3s, I mean, one thing they cut out even more. I like the record because, there's a lot more space to fill up. I guess you got the little booklet, and the CD, mm-hmm. but the record,
Right.
So you got all that room and for artwork and stuff you can read and
right.
Yeah.
And then you get to learn about them, and they might have a little brief history of the group and those types of things.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like to know, who they are, where they come from, what this is.
Right.
But and I know the whole thing is like, I mean, it's so different from what it was, when I was a kid, the industry and everything.
Right.
Now, we can all like put our music out there. This is probably going live on YouTube, and it's probably live on my Twitter page right now.
I bet it is.
So yeah, I hope so. But you think, okay, so and there are a few people out there watching it and stuff. And people, maybe I made up a thing early in the show. I just made up a thing, and maybe somebody listened to that. But just the industry, the way it's hard to make any money at it. That the record companies are leveraged, like they've got huge bills and they're not making much money and they're freaking out.
Right.
And the whole thing. What should all happen with Napster back in the day, and Napster came out, and
oh yeah,
and then people were freaking out over that,
Oh, big time they were. Boy, you try to put something on Napster and get something there, they sue.
Yeah. Well, that was the backlash. There's stuff going on now, and then I don't know.
Yeah, it's like you can't even really sell albums that much anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so sorry. Here's my first yawn of the show. That's pretty good. I think I could probably. I'd like to get another CD pressed. I was on a record label that died real fast. It was in the .com, on the run up to the .com, the bubble before it popped. Mm-hmm. So it was a software company, and they were trying to do what CD Baby does now, sell music online. And the thing we were going to try to do is to have people come in and record, and then we'd promote them and stuff, and if somebody wanted to pick them up, we'd sort of sell them their contract,
right?
And make some money that way, and then and we'd make other money by selling CDs and do like vanity presses and stuff like that. But it was a part of a software company that basically the software company's big thing, that their big source of income was that the people go into like stores, with the big step van full of potato chips. They got a little computer on their waist, their hip, they push the buttons.
Oh, yeah.
Try to keep track of all the potato chips they're putting up in the.
Yep, I've seen those.
Yeah. So the company who serviced the software of those little computers they have on their, on their belt, that was their main money. And then but it was built on an archaic system. So somebody came along and said, "This is no good. Let's do something a little less clunky, because if you have a software platform and then things change and you keep putting another one and fixing that, then the whole foundation is kind of like really old." Right. So he said, let's do this other one. It'd be a lot simpler, cheaper and stuff. And that was the main thing. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And they did. And then the other things they were doing, they didn't have a marketing department. And they they had other people working on their software they couldn't sell, and then they had this project I was involved in, and had my record out, Rumors of Amelia, my guitar solo, and went pop, and then the president of the company, he died. I don't know if he killed himself or what happened. He just died, and then it was like, so I thought, well, maybe I should do another. It's been 20 years? Maybe I should do another CD.
There you go. That'll work.
Because I could probably sell them, because people I play, they're old. They like CDs.
Be like, I want to buy that one.
Yeah. Well, they all got their smartphones. Everybody's got smartphones except for me.
I do have a question for you, though. What is your favorite live album?
Oh, man.
Because they don't even make live albums no more. It's just like, because I remember, like you got Peter Frampton live, Kiss live, such and such live.
Yeah.
They don't make live albums no more.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I haven't. Yeah, I don't know of one anymore. I like that. I like that Jackson Browne record for my own reasons. There was and believe it or not, it's kind of weird, but there's a Gordon Lightfoot record they did, which was called Sunday Concert, and it was back in the day when it was just him with his 6 and 12-string guitar singing his songs. And I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking about Gordon Lightfoot lately. I actually learned a few of his songs, to do his solos, and I kind of like Gordon Lightfoot really, because he's this songwriter guy, and maybe one of the really original singer-songwriter guys, So I kind of like that record just because it was so, unedited, unprocessed. It was a record I had a long time ago, and I don't know whatever happened. It was a long time ago, and then there's like some other like classical. There's a Julian Bream record, which I think was from a concert or something. It's like or highlights from concerts, classical guitar. But what do you like? What's yours?
Well, to tell you the truth, I like several. I mean, the crazy thing about it is you have, like I just mentioned, Peter Frampton. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that You Feel Like We Do. Mm-hmm. That's like the best song on the whole album, and it's a live album. Mm-hmm. But when I was a kid, one of my favorite groups was Kiss. Mm-hmm. I used to love Kiss.
Okay, wow.
So I think my favorite live album that actually between that and Cheap Trick and Budokan. Mm-hmm. So I'd say, probably like Kiss Alive 2, I think it was, and then the Cheap Trick Live at Budokan. I think those are my favorite live albums.
Okay. I think I've heard those. I know Cheap Trick at Budokan, I've heard that. And there was sort of Live at Budokan records that were kicking around in those days.
Yeah.
I remember those. I didn't really have much of a stereo, actually, but I used to go to people's houses and like parties and stuff. There's it was one of those things, we had somebody's like house that used to be a house that a large family lived in, and now it's like a rooming house. And they have a big living room with like 3 couches in it, and you go over there. One house actually this guy had an old pop machine. He put beer in it because he was tired of people drinking his beer, so he had to put a quarter in to get a beer out.
Nice.
So he had a beer machine in his kitchen, that sort of thing, and they had like 3 couches. I lived in a house that had like 4 couches in the living room, and it was just so. And there's also somebody had a good stereo, and they play whatever, and I didn't really, because I was not. I'm more like a classical guitar player.
Yeah. But I like Bill Withers at Carnegie Hall. That's a good one, too.
I like Bill Withers, period.
Me, too.
Definitely.
Me, too. Definitely.
Which reminds me of one of the champions of Bill Withers is our BF Burt, Kevin Burton.
Yep.
Kevin BF Burt, he's a champion of Bill Withers.
Yep.
He just got a big award recently.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Well, if anybody earned it.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who works harder than him. He'd like play 500 gigs in a year, and there's only 365 days.
Right.
Anyway. I don't know. Guy from Coralville. Well, anyway, that's about it for the show. I'll be back next week. I always come back. Get your reservations for Valentine's Day at the Tuscan Moon a week from tomorrow. I don't know what time I'll be there, but I guess I'll get there early and stay late. Maybe I'll hang that big red heart off my guitar. Too bad they can't have Valentine's Day on a Friday night. Hey, you could just do Valentine's Day on Friday night.
There you go.